Hi, my name is Mandy, and today we're going to be doing my end of December wrap-up. For the last half of December, I read 12 books. 1 was an audiobook, 6 were physical books, and 5 of them were in a mixed format. And my average rating for the entire month of December was 3.8. First up, in the last half of December, I read Broken Throne by Victoria Aveyard. This is a collection of 5 novellas that take place in the Red Queen world. It also intersperses some of the history of that world in between the stories. I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was a very good companion novella collection. I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed, there were some storylines at the end of Warstorm, the last Red Queen book, that were left open a little ambiguous. And I was really pleased with how these little novellas tied it up. One thing, I don't know, the novellas seemed a little bit, they just cut off at random spots. Like didn't really feel like an actual novella. It just felt like the author was writing some fun stuff for us, which I enjoyed, but I don't know if I'd call them novellas. Next up, I read Letters to the Lost by Brigitte Kammerer, and oh my goodness, this was so good. There were a couple of things that kind of pushed it down a little bit, but overall I rated this one 4.5 stars. It was like this close to getting a 5-star rating. And considering that I don't usually give contemporary novels 5 stars, that's a big deal. This is about a girl named Juliet who has lost her mother. Her mother died back in May, and this is about the start of the school year. She doesn't really know how to go on without her mom there. And so she leaves letters for her on her grave. It's something that they did through her life. They would write letters to each other, and she continues doing it after her mother's death. Declan is doing community service at the cemetery. He has to mow, but before he can mow, he has to clear off any personal items from the headstones and graves because that could mess with the mowers. So he finds her letter and really connects with it, so he writes back. And then she writes back, and they start a correspondence. They're basically pen pals, but they don't know who the other person is. It was so good. It was so wonderfully told. I had previously read Brigitte Kammerer's most recent fantasy book, A Curse So Dark and Lonely, and this month I read all 3 of her contemporaries, and I'm just sitting here wondering when she's going to come out with more contemporaries because this was so great. All of them were great. I'll talk about the other one in a little bit. After that, I've read Broadmoor by Julianne Donaldson. This is about a girl who lives in the late 1800s. Her mom is very focused on trying to get her married, but she doesn't want to get married. She wants to be like her aunt, who is not married and is going off to India. She really wants to go to India with her aunt, but her mom says no until they strike up a deal. She's going to her very good friend's house. It's called Blackmoor. She promises to her mom that she will receive and reject 3 proposals, and if she does reject those 3 proposals, her mom will let her go to India, but if not, she has to do whatever her mom wants her to do. So she thinks that getting these proposals is going to be easy, so she agrees, and she enlists the help of her friend Henry, who's been her best friend since childhood. That's all I'll say, but this one was really cute. It was adorable. I gave it 4 stars. A really nice romance. It's also a clean romance. For anyone who does not want sex in their books, like I don't. The next book that I read was The Beauty of Darkness by Mary E. Pearson. This is the 3rd book in the Remnant Chronicles, and let me tell you, this book blew my mind. The Remnant Chronicles is about a girl who is a princess, and she is set into an arranged marriage. She runs from the marriage and takes solace in a town called Terravin. She becomes a barmaid there and is just really enjoying being on her own. Eventually, she is tracked to Terravin by 2 men. One of them is the prince she was supposed to marry, and one of them is an assassin sent by a rival kingdom to kill her. Neither of them kill her, and That's all I'll say. Things start picking up really in the second book. I was not a very big fan of the first book. I just thought it was okay. And the second book I thought was better, but still not amazing. And this third book just blew me out of the water. It was so good. It kept me engaged, and I was super, super fascinated by what was going to happen. And it was great. I gave it a 4.5 star review, which, considering that the first two books got 3 stars and like 3.75 respectively, is amazing that I love the third book that much. Like, I was considering not continuing on with the series after the first book. That's how not impressed I was with it. If you're feeling like I was a little unimpressed by the first book, I would say push through, because that last one was great. The next book that I read was More Than We Can Tell by Brigitte Kemmerer. This book is a companion novel to the Letters to the Lost book that I was just talking about. It is about a guy named Rev, and Rev is the best friend of the main guy in Letters to the Lost. He was actually one of my favorite characters in that first book, and so when I heard that she had a companion novel, I was like, it's gotta be about Rev, and it was. I loved Rev, and I loved seeing his relationship unfold. Rev has gone through a lot of trauma in his life. His dad abused him, and he was adopted by his foster family, so things are better on the home front. But when his dad suddenly comes into contact with him again, it kind of sends his world reeling, and he doesn't know what to do. He escapes off to the steps of this church where he just kind of finds solace, and that is where Emma finds him. Emma is really into computer coding. She's created her own online game, and she was just on a walk with her dog, comes across him, and then they keep meeting at this church, and adorableness ensues, but also a lot of really hard topics, but in the best possible way. I did not enjoy this one quite as much as Letters to the Lost. I gave this one a 4-star rating. There were some plot points towards the end that I was a little iffy on. Not a whole ton iffy on, just like a tiny, tiny bit of iffy, which kept me from fully enjoying it as much as Letters to the Lost, but it was so good. I loved having Rev's story, and I thought that Emma was a great matching for him, and the end. Next up, I read The Afterlife of Holly Chase. If you watched my 2019 wrap-up video, you'll know that this one actually made it onto my top 5 favorites of the year. This is about a girl named Holly Chase who was a Scrooge. Every year this company picks a new person to try and turn their life around, and Holly was a Scrooge, but she did not listen, and she ended up dying, and after she died she became the ghost of Christmas Past. At the point of this book, she has been the ghost of Christmas Past for 5 years, but because she did die, she doesn't age, and this is the first year that the Scrooge chosen has been someone her own age, or at least the age that she was when she died. She feels like something's different, but she doesn't know what. And that's all I'll say. It was such a great book. I loved the journey that Holly made throughout the book. It was well told, and at the end I just felt so satisfied. I gave it 5 stars. If you are looking for a holiday read that is more than just people kissing in the snow or in a cutesy town like a Hallmark movie, I'd say that this is the one for you to check out. The next book that I read was Someday Maybe by Colleen Hoover. This one is a new adult book, and so I probably should have been ready for the sex at the end, but I just kind of skipped over it. I don't know if I'll be reading many more of her books. This is about a girl who is essentially kicked out of her apartment when she realized that her best friend slash roommate has been sleeping with her boyfriend for like the entire time they've been together. So she moves out, doesn't know where to go, and she ends up being adopted by a guy who lives across the way from her named Ridge. Before she moves in with Ridge, her only interactions with him have been to text each other across the balcony. And when she moves in, she finds out that he's actually deaf. He's deaf, but he actually writes music and songs, and they start to form a bond over music and she helps him to write music for his brother's band. Only they're sitting here falling in love and he's got a girlfriend. I very nearly DNF'd this book because, as I mentioned in my last month wrap up, I am not a very big fan of cheating storylines. And this one really, really towed the line of what I am comfortable with. But I did see, when I looked on GOODREADS, there were a couple of booktubers that I follow who had read this book, and in their reviews they said that they were a little iffy in the middle, but the ending was beautiful. So I thought I've just got to hang out until the ending, and I still wasn't fully okay with it. So I only gave it 2 stars. I mean, they did have a cute relationship, and I did really like the aspect of him being deaf and still writing music, but overall, the love story did not do it for me. 2 stars. Then I read Suitors and Sabotage by Cindy Yancey. Basically, you have a girl who is living in the late 1800s. She has just finished her first season, and she attracted the eye of a man named Ernest, and he is invited to her house to get to know her better, to court her. He brings along his younger brother for support, and turns out the main girl falls for his brother. One of my bookish buzzwords is brothers. I realized this week, I think it started from watching While You Were Sleeping as a kid, and probably shouldn't like books where brothers are semi-competing, but oh well. I enjoyed this one. It wasn't amazing, it wasn't terrible, so I give it a 3.5 star review. It was just okay. After that, I read Just Friends by Tiffany Pittock. This is about 2 people who had never really interacted before in school, and when they're paired together for a project where they're supposed to get up in front of the class and talk about what they did during summer vacation, they decide to kind of make something up and play off each other and pretend that they've been best friends for their whole lives. And so they go back and forth about like, oh, well, you did this, and well, you did that, and they have this great chemistry, and our main character has never had that with anyone before. And so while everyone goes thinking that they've been best friends their whole lives, they actually do become best friends. Only feelings may develop. I really enjoyed the banter. Like, it really surprised me by how well they were able to interact with each other and bounce things back. I had a harder time relating to the main character though. I didn't fully relate to her and her thoughts and her emotions, but other than that, it was really good. I gave it a 3.5 star rating. Then I read Starry Eyes by Jen Bennett. This one is a contemporary about a girl who has estranged herself from her best friend. She doesn't want to talk about it. We don't know a lot about what happened between her and said best friend, but she ends up on a camping trip with him, and through a series of events they end up there by themselves and they have to backcountry backpack together. They start to come closer to each other, and cuteness. I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. I thought that their relationships were so cute together, and I really liked how everything ended up. I thought it had a more realistic ending than some of the other endings that I have read in cutesy romance books. Then I read The Impossibility of Us by Katie Upperman. This is about a girl who has lost her brother. He was a soldier in Afghanistan and was killed in action over there. Her mom moves her to be closer to his family, his daughter and wife. She feels kind of alone, doesn't know where she fits in, and then she meets Maddie. Maddie is there for the summer. His dad is going through cancer treatment, and he's actually from Afghanistan. They start to come closer together. They start to have feelings for each other. But her her mom and her sister-in-law are very against this relationship because of the experience with her brother. They're not sure if a relationship can even happen because he is going back to Afghanistan at the end of the summer. But it was so cute. I gave this one 4 stars. I enjoyed it so much. Their relationship was adorable, and I was rooting for them the whole way, and it really was a cute romance with good substance. And the final book that I read this month was Truth Witch by Susan Dennard. This is set in a world where there are different kinds of witches, and the main girl is a truth witch. She can tell when people are lying to her. In her kingdom, they are coming to the end of this 20-year truce, and everyone is coming together to hopefully make the truce happen again, but there are a lot of people around. Some of them want the truth and some of them don't. I'll leave it at that. It was really good. I gave this one 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed the world and the magic. I felt like the romance was slightly insta-lovey, and I wasn't so much feeling that, but I was feeling everything else in this book. It was great. So that's what I read in the last half of December. What did you guys read? I'd love to hear it. If you like what you saw today, feel free to click subscribe. You can also follow me on my social media, which I will link down below. I hope you're having a great bookish day, and I will see you next time. Bye!